What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Down. Today's guest, he's welcome back. He's the man with the plan inside the cigar industry. That's Josh Habursky, head of government relations for the PCA and deputy director executive. Is that the right title?
Dang, he's got them titles, baby.
He's got the big dick titles.
Well, Josh, welcome back to the Burn Down. What's going on?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me back on. We're really a good time for this. We've got a lot going on, government affairs, some exciting stuff. Like I said, good, bad, and ugly. And but we're moving in and shaking here in DC.
Crazy. Yeah, we got some stuff. So we actually had the idea because we were talking about some of the crazy tax hikes in New York. There's a potential flavor cigar ban. There's lots of stuff going on in the cigar industry. So Eric's like, yo, we got to get Josh back on. We got to talk this out because if there's anybody that knows what's going on in the industry, it's this man right here. So.
Dude, what's up with 95% tax in New York? What's up with that?
Oh, it's scary. You know, it's one of those things. Fortunately, the New York Tobacconists Association is very well fortified. They've been, prepared for this. They're working to get two positive bills advanced, one on cigar bars and then one on a tax cap. So there's two positive bills, and then there's obviously the one that would hike the tax, which would be problematic, and they're fighting that, and we're providing kind of that air cover support. But they have a retained lobbyist. They've done communications. If you go to most shops in New York, you should see at the point of sale, sign the petition. Our link is cigaraction.org. I'll probably say that a couple times during the show. But go there, write to your elected officials. It automatically populates to, who your state senator or your state house member is, to let them know, hey, stop the taxes on my cigars, or in the positive sense, hey, allow people to have an adult beverage with a cigar. These are 21 and over establishments. It makes sense. Add a line of business and keep tax dollars local. That's the other argument there. Unfortunately, in New York, even if there's no tax increases, cigars are not as affordable in New York as there are in bordering states.
Yeah. And
people are just going to Pennsylvania to buy their cigars when they live in New York, stocking up, or going to Native American reservations and purchasing their cigars. We see that. And the only people that really, lose out when you have such astronomically high taxes are the citizens of the state of New York, who don't get that revenue to support, programs.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's why one of the reasons why we chose our partner, Flying Cigar Co. out of Arizona, to be our online distributor for the blueprints, because the tax in New York is ridiculous. And we had mentioned it before. You're only hurting these mom and pop shops, right? You're hurting the locals that their blood, sweat, and tears have gone into opening up a cigar lounge. And now they got to pay these crazy taxes. And the people that are coming in to support those lounges, they're not going to come in anymore because they're like, well, I'm not going to spend $20 on a stick that used to cost me $10. I'm just going to buy it online and sit at home. So these local lounges are the ones that are really going to hurt when it comes to these.
And just to let it be known, I did go on the website and I did submit my petition. I pre-filled everything, and I said, "Screw the New York government for freaking taxing me 95%. No way, no how."
Yeah, it's something simple. Takes 30 seconds, and you're right. And with the brick and mortar lounges and shops, you talk. One of the concerns that people throughout government, federal, state, local, international, they're concerned about youth access to tobacco products. Well, what better way to have a face-to-face transaction where someone's getting, has to show their identification, incentivize people that are adults that, are willingly, going and purchasing a cigar, enjoying it in a lounge. They show their identification, they do it. But you have to make it reasonable. Taxation shouldn't be, something that is used as a mechanism to prohibit behavior. And that's what we're seeing nowadays is the goalposts keep moving. These anti-tobacco groups are completely deranged in some sense. I'll speak very candidly. And that they are trying to get people to, not purchase these products outright through all different mechanisms, taxation being one of them.
Now, what is there conversation within your realm? At least in New York, it's taxed way less, but like cannabis. So cannabis in New York is taxed like 13%. Right now, tobacco's 75, potentially 95. What's the correlation? What's the thought process behind taxing something that's like it's not really hindering, cigars aren't hindering your train of thought, your decision-making skills, whereas cannabis can. If you get behind a car, you're smoking weed, you're going to get a DUI. If you're smoking a cigar, the cop's going to say, man, your car smells like an ashtray. So what's do you have a good thought process, or is there a thought process behind that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox. I mean, you have on one side people trying to, get tobacco completely banned outright. And then, with cannabis, you see a lot of deregulation. Like, our association, we don't lobby on cannabis, but, we look at some of the other products that are out there within the space. And you're seeing some of the same elected officials aiming to lower taxes or legalize cannabis that are going after tobacco. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about California on this show, but there's been a couple different bills that have been introduced, and one of them was to create cafes, much like Amsterdam, where people can smoke cannabis recreationally in California, and yet they're trying to ban the indoor smoking of tobacco products. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you ever have the chance to go to the Netherlands, you can go to cafes and smoke weed and get all other kinds of, substances out
Fun stuff.
But you are not allowed to smoke cigars indoors. I went to a couple of great lounges and shops, and everybody was smoking cigars outside of the shop.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's all these chairs, there's these, beautiful espresso machines, wide selection. I'm like, man, this is what a waste. I really feel for the folks, especially in Europe and New Zealand and Australia, that are having to face these crazy restrictions. Still, we in the United States have it fairly, we have it fairly good. Mm-hmm. There's some key exceptions there, and I think California and New York, unfortunately, are those exceptions for state level policy that's bad. But if you look across the 50 states, there are still a lot of options for people to enjoy cigars with their friends, with their family, within, indoors.
Yeah, and I was going back on, where you were in Europe and different countries where they're smoking outside a lounge. I was in Toronto a few years ago. I was at, La Casa del Habano, right? Are those the...
In Toronto, yeah.
Yeah, in Toronto, right? And beautiful
Yep.
lounge, beautiful bar, beautiful espresso machine, all stuff. I'm like, man, I can't wait to go in there and smoke a Cuban cigar. And then I just pull up, and all these guys are kind of huddled around and on the sidewalk. Like the chairs and the tables are on the sidewalk. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we can't smoke in there. And I was like, then what the frick is the point? And they're like, it's the freaking rules, man. We can't do anything. We have to hang out here. We can't even enjoy being inside. I'm like, sucks.
That doesn't make any sense. That makes zero sense.
I know. It does.
You can sell. It's like saying, oh, I can sell you I have a bar that I can make you a cocktail, but you can't drink the cocktail inside.
Gotta go over there.
You gotta go into this small little section and drink.
It's bizarre. And now we've been referencing you ever since we had you for the first time. What was that? 2 years ago or so? Where you talked about premium cigar sales overall for tobacco is 0.5%. Yes. Is that still whole truth? I mean, is that what is that looking like?
Yeah, I mean, there's the import numbers have increased, but in size of market share with all the other tobacco products, it's still very small, 0.02%. It's interesting how some markets are there's a little bit of a shift. Europe is now gravitating towards more New World cigars. That has been predominantly a Cuban market. Some of the changes there, you're seeing a lot of Honduran, Dominican, and Nicaraguan cigars now go to Europe. People have continued to enjoy cigars in the United States despite some of these, erroneous regulations and pieces of legislation. But we're trying to make sure that people understand the distinctions between premium cigars and other products, and really it's a bellwether when we're looking at some of the stuff internationally. I think people thought we were crazy last year when we were making a big stink about New Zealand and Australia, saying, well, why is PCA worried about New Zealand and Australia? Like, worry about, what's going on locally. Well, that policy is now, it was introduced in a locality in Massachusetts, and now the state of California, there was an introduction for a generational smoking ban. Warning labels, we fought that here in the United States. Canada is going through another rendition of that. We've launched a campaign on cigaraction.org in Canada. That's an area where they have been put through the ringer with their government and Health Canada. We're trying to mobilize the retailers there. It's weird because in the United States, they kind of call us these American cowboys because we want to come and fight everything. And we're trying to export that internationally, where that American fighting spirit, we're not going to let government dictate, as an adult, what I can and can't do within reason. And, there's a sensible rules, sensible regulation, sensible taxation. We're not against that. But what the anti-tobacco groups and the government, in some sense, they're moving the goalposts further and further, and we have to take a stand when necessary. And we're doing that in Canada, we're doing that in the United States, and elsewhere.
Are you finding it hard to find other counterparts that have the same views as the PCA does with tobacco? Is it like very limited resources? Like, how do you guys get a powwow together to fight the power?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some other coordinate associations. I think that also, in Europe and some other countries like New Zealand and Australia, they've, almost squeezed out all of the tobacco industry in some sense, one way, shape, or form. And now they're starting, if you look in the European Union, they're starting to look at caffeine and alcohol and other things that people enjoy. And, there's a member of Congress that was on one of the mainstream news outlets saying that, the worst thing that government can do is tell an adult that they can't have fun. And that's kind of what they're doing.
100%.
In some sense. So, it isn't crazy now to think that, your coffee or your energy drink or your bourbon might have further restrictions certainly within our lifetime or in the next 10 years. So I think people coming to that realization, even if you're not a cigar smoker or you're not pro-tobacco or pro-smoking, you kind of take a step back and you're like, well, you know what? If they can do that to something that these folks enjoy, that they're making a concerted adult decision, what are they going to next?
Yeah, I mean, you think about some of the areas like over in Oregon or in California, or even in New York, they were talking about making these safe houses for people to do hard drugs. And I go, I said, how does that even make, for instance, cigar smoking or coffee or even like alcohol, again, in moderation, like that's not harming to you, right? Obviously, if you're an alcoholic and you drink like in excess, right, it's going to be harmful to you. But drugs, like doing more or methamphetamines and cocaine and heroin, that's not like, even if you did that in moderation, that's still harmful to you, right? So these are hard drugs. You're going to legalize these. And you're going to make safe houses. Like, I don't understand the thought process. So one of the questions I was going to say is, why are these governing bodies going after such a small market, right? So I can understand. Let's say you're trying to go for money. You want to make more money as this, the FDA or the governing body. Why are you going to raise a tax on a market that makes up 0.2% of all tobacco sales? We did the numbers on a previous episode. If you raise the tax on cigarettes like 0.5%, you would make 10 times the amount of money on that one tax than you would by raising the cigar tax 20%. So I can't see, all right, it can't be a financial thing. It can't be a health risk, because if you look at all these studies that are coming out about cigars, that cigars have nil effect on your health in the long run. It can't be like, all right, we're trying to reduce the number of, let's say, DWI cases, right? Because you can't get arrested for cigars don't do anything mentally. So what's the reasoning that they're going after the cigar industry so hard?
So with the anti-tobacco groups and most lobbying, there's negotiation. You don't get 100% what you want. You kind of negotiate and you work with the opposition groups. You work with the elected officials. When it comes to tobacco policy, there is no room for negotiation. They don't want that. It's very clear that their goal is to remove the existence of tobacco. No full stop, nothing else, no caveats to that. And they're not thinking about premium cigars. They are thinking about cigarettes. They are thinking about vapor products, other things that are out there that get much more attention, that have a larger market share. We're an afterthought that gets swept up. The anti-tobacco groups conflate the data about non-premium cigars. They conflate the data with cigarettes, and we get swept up. We don't have the resources to fight at the level that they're coming out. We did a piece at PCA. It's on our blog about what we're up against. So on one hand, you have Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg. He just committed $420 million over the next 4 years to go after tobacco. On the other side, Philip Morris, a cigarette conglomerate, other companies within the tobacco and non-tobacco sphere, has said that they want to be the smoke-free future. So we're getting attacked on both ends because we are a combustible product and that it's a tobacco product. So the level of and the amount of money that these anti-groups are pouring into it, everyone was like, big tobacco. And unfortunately, we have been cast under that net. And that's a lot of my time is spent educating folks, letting people know that this is a mom and pop cigar shop that has 6 employees. This is not a multinational corporation that is making millions and billions of dollars. This is in all reality, 20 or 30 people depend on this lounge as their area where they can go and relax at the end of the day after a hard day's work, and where people from all walks of life can come together and break bread, have tough conversations, talk about politics and religion and things that you wouldn't normally talk about, because cigars, to me at least, are relaxing. And so that's what we're fighting for. And I think I said it on the last show that I was on with you guys. I'm a first. I love premium cigars, and I'm fighting for my ability to continue to enjoy my passion and my hobby, so that people, when they turn 21, they can make the decision similar to I did and you all did, and said, all right, we want to enjoy cigars together.
Yeah, that's like you said, where you're trying to prevent an adult from making a decision on their own to whether or not they would like to indulge in this activity, right? And they're adults. Let them make the decision, right? Regardless if it's at a risk to you, right? Like cigarettes right now. Cigarettes are a very harmful risk to your health. But if you're an adult and you understand the risks and you would like to indulge in that, then by all means, indulge in that. But cigars, we've done plenty of research on cigars, and they don't, if you're an average cigar smoker, average, right? Most average cigar smokers are not like us that are smoking 1 cigar a day on average. They're probably smoking, maybe a couple of times a month. Maybe. That has nil effect on your health in the long term. Yeah, nobody dies from cigars in the long term.
I always refer people from an article from the FDA, right? I think it came out in like 2015 or so, but they came out where it said 1 to 2 cigars a day are nil to your health. And I just feel like that came out, almost 10 years ago? Why isn't it and I know there's an article that came out just recently where I'm not sure what organization was for tobacco, but they said the government was basically, like you were saying, kind of inflating the numbers regarding cigars, and these numbers aren't actually accurate. I think it was a court that actually ruled it, saying that, listen, you kind of inflated these numbers, and it's obviously not accurate. Clearly from this data, you didn't do enough research. Go back and actually do the data.
Yep, and it was part of the NASEM study, the National Academy of Sciences. They released a report, and they said, you got to make sure that there's segmentation. You need to clearly define what a premium cigar is. And then also our third lawsuit against the Food and Drug Administration. We're 3-0 in the courts against the FDA because not only the government and the FDA and a lot of politicians here in Congress will conflate using the information provided by organizations like the American Cancer Society and the Heart Association and the like, that they do not want tobacco to exist any longer. That's in their mission statement, and that's what we're up against. So, it's definitely a challenging atmosphere. The one thing I will say on kind of the positive note, we're already 2 months into 2023, and there has been more positive legislation introduced at the state level than negative legislation. Even though there's been some high-profile negative things like New York, like California, there are a lot of cigar bar bills being introduced. There are a lot of tax caps introduced that will, provide people more affordable options for purchasing premium cigars. Those arguments are starting to take shape. Our team, Glenn Loop at the state level is doing a lot of work. We sift through upwards of 10,000 pieces of legislation at the state level every year to make sure that bad stuff's not going through, but also we're fighting for good things. We want to see these businesses continue to not only survive but thrive, to have employees. Having small businesses is a good thing, and I think that narrative, people were always afraid to say this and shy away from it because tobacco and smoke. These are Main Street mom and pop businesses. When they close, the tough thing is who's going to replace those businesses. So that's who we're fighting for. We're fighting for the employees. We're fighting for the small businesses, and we're fighting for consumers like you and I.
Now, there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives. What are some of the things that you like about the position you're in, that you look forward to every single day? Like you wake up and you're like, all right, I can't wait to bash some government skulls to show them what the real tobacco is.
I love my job. I have my dream job. I've been lobbying now for over a decade, and I've worked lobbying for motorcycles, banks, you name it. And this is something that I'm really passionate about. I've seen, the positive side. I just got back from Pro Cigar in the Dominican Republic and got to see the Cigar Family Foundation, something that Carlito Fuente and the Newmans, J.C. Newman Company, have put together. A school, a clinic, a amphitheater built for by the cigar industry. And it was very humbling to see the development that has taken place in the DR. I've been in Nicaragua, hopefully going later this year to Honduras. In the cigar producing countries, we see it continually, day in and day out. I get to meet with retailers, their staff, their employees, sales reps, manufacturers in the United States. And, that's certainly the core bread and butter of who we're fighting for. But I get emotional about, when I'm in the cigar producing countries and seeing that literally nothing was there, or, there was violence and chaos and not an access to water or roads. And then, a couple of years later, what they've done in Banao in the Dominican Republic. And I encourage anybody that is visiting the DR to see the Cigar Family Foundation. That, to me, if you're a politician that sees something like that, or even, a lot of the charitable events that the cigar industry has supported over the years, millions and millions of dollars, from scholarships to health programs to you name it. To me, that is the most rewarding part of the job, is fighting for things like that. The things that aren't necessarily front and center, that we're trying to make sure people realize. The story, one of the speakers when I was there at the Cigar Family Foundation was somebody that went through the schooling and was now one of the lead doctors at the medical clinic.
Wow.
So, got to see full circle where the quality of life has improved for this person and his family exponentially.
Just from cigar companies starting a factory and developing some kind of culture and small world there.
See, that's a good point. Is that, you know, for the United States is so, I feel like we're always looking, you know, we're always trying to help like other countries, right? Like this thing with Ukraine, like they're always trying to help other countries, and I have no problem with helping other people. Like you should help people if you're in a position to do so. Granted, you know, you're not completely destroyed yourself, right? If you can't help yourself, then you probably should help yourself first and then help others, right? But what I'm getting at is these countries like Nicaragua and Dominican Republic and Honduras and Ecuador, cigars are a huge lifeblood in that country, right? The amount of cigars that are exported from those countries into the United States are in the hundreds of millions. So if you're going to try to ban cigars across the board in the United States, you are going to completely destroy like 5 or 6 South American countries.
Yep.
It's going to start looking like, what is it? What's the company that's going under right now in South America? Is it Colombia?
I don't know.
No, the one company. I mean, one part of South America just completely like they took some kind of new political view and now it's just flipped upside down. Like I thought it was Colombia. Maybe it's not.
It's crazy. You're spot on. Like the effects of what we do in the United States has a ripple effect, whether it's immigration, national security, jobs, commerce. Last year when they introduced the crazy federal tax that we fought against successfully, they would have cost 100,000 jobs and $400 million to the Dominican Republic alone if that would have passed.
100,000 jobs in the DR.
So just think about all those families. Let's say,
right.
Times 400,000 people. It would have been detrimental. And I think that's something that we definitely need to not take for granted and make sure that politicians here in the United States understand. But I mean, it's rewarding. I get to enjoy a lot of cigars in this role and just meet people. We at our office, we're blocks from the U.S. Capitol. This week we've had 4 or 5 different manufacturers, 4 or 5 retailers stopping by. There's always something going on. The association, COVID, and all of that was tough. Cancellation of the trade show. We're back now better than ever. We just made a recent hire. We're about to make another hire later in March. And it's an exciting time to be at PCA. It's an exciting time to be on the government affairs side, too. On the positive side of things, the Congressional Cigar Caucus is strong. It's bipartisan now. Almost at 50 members of Congress. And a lot of folks are smoking cigars in their personal offices on the Capitol. And it's a good sight to see. I think there's 3 or 4 members of Congress that even have their own personal cigars. It's always fun when you get to go over and have a serious meeting, but you get to do it over a cigar.
Yeah.
That happened yesterday for us. And I get excited anytime, hey, you want to have a cigar, you want to do it at our office or your office. So it makes the job not feel like a job.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine, the atmosphere or the ambiance. Because I always say, like, cigar lounges are a place where any person, any guy or gal, creed, occupation, you can always talk to them, have a good conversation, no matter what you're doing. And it's such a encouraging environment and a calm environment where you can almost have like political debates. They don't have to be so hostile. So I can only imagine meetings with different viewpoints and different opinions. Once you light up a cigar, you're already connecting with the person who might be your opposition, but now you can have a more level-headed conversation. You might hesitate to get a little more defensive or start arguing with the guy with a cigar in your hand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
So we had talked about there's 400,000 people that were in Honduras or Nicaragua?
Dominican Republic.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
100,000 families that you said. How many people would be affected in the United States if the cigar industry were to go? Like how many people does the cigar industry employ in the United States alone?
So we have about 3,500 small businesses, about 30 to 40,000 retail employees. On the manufacturing side, you might want to say 10, 15,000 when you include all the sales forces. So, about 75,000 to 100,000 people domestically in the United States. But there's the immediate effect and also the ripple effect. Think about shipping and packaging, box production, all of that. It's hard to quantify, but there were 500 million cigars imported to the United States last year. So despite it being 0.02% of the overall tobacco market, it's significant. There are a lot of people that depend on it. And, the cultural aspect, too. The other great thing about visiting the Dominican Republic is that they celebrate premium cigars. It's part of their national cultural heritage product that their Congress has formally had at the equivalence of our Washington Monument. They had one of the parties in Santiago, and last year the vice president was there. The Minister of Industry and Commerce was there this year. It really is a cultural, social, as well as an economic symbol of importance.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine it being like a national crop, if you will. Like, for instance, got Idaho, potatoes are a state crop. You go to Indiana, it's corn, right?
Cheese in Wisconsin.
Right? But it's a major crop that is in all of these countries, in South America countries.
It kind of reminds me of, going back to what you were saying, like if they stop Dominican cigars from coming to the United States, about 100,000 people are going to lose their job. That's, quantify that maybe 200, 300,000 people with their families, right? It kind of reminds me of like Detroit, taking the car business out of Detroit and like what happened to it. All the industrial revolution kind of just crumbled down. Now you go to Detroit. Detroit was like the hot city to live in, to work in. And now you look at Detroit and it's a troubled city right now. So I would imagine to have the same effects, short term and long term, down in the DR.
And you think about in the United States too, the tourism, whatever I'm traveling, even if it's personally, I'm looking for whatever the local restaurant or pizza shop, but I'm also looking for the local cigar lounge. I want to go and support the brick and mortar. And you're seeing like cities like Phoenix and Nashville and Atlanta really develop a unique cigar culture where there's options, where you can go to 30 or 40 different lounges in those cities, and no lounge is the same. You can go in, walk in, not know anyone, strike up a conversation, and really dive into it, meet lifelong friends. So that's the other beauty of the cigar industry, and I'm sure you guys doing the Burn Down podcast, you've met people. And you think that it's going to be a half hour or an hour conversation that you're in constant communication with. Hey, we're interested into sports, and you just find little facts that unite one another. The overarching thing is that you both enjoy cigars,
100%.
But that's what leads into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it wasn't for cigars, like I've met people that I would never have thought that I would have met, or we've met people on the podcast. We've had people on the podcast that if you would have said, 5 years ago, oh, you're gonna have a conversation with this guy, I would have been like, no, never gonna happen. But because of cigars, we've had conversations with so many people. Like, for instance, Ed Reed, Hall of Famer, NFL. If you would have told me 5 years ago, hey, Ed Reed is gonna be a fan of yours and you're gonna have a cigar with him, I'd be like, no chance. Or you're gonna sit down and have a conversation with him. No chance.
100%.
But we had him on our podcast, right? We've had so many people on the show. I've met so many incredible people, all because of a cigar.
And imagine they get taken away. We can't say we're bringing people together over cigars anymore. We're going to be like, we're bringing people together over ourselves.
And what I don't understand too is like, it's and this is kind of backing marijuana, is one of the things that the marijuana or the cannabis community always says is, oh, it's just a plant. right? Well, premium cigars are just a plant.
Yep.
It's just tobacco, right? And they rope us in with cigarettes, which are less than 5% tobacco. Cigarettes, if anything, it's the furthest from a tobacco product, because there's no tobacco in there. There's virtually no tobacco in there. But they rope us in. They say, yeah, cigars and cigarettes are the same thing. And go, they couldn't be farther from the same thing.
No doubt.
It's amazing. Like, I look at all the, sports, and you see, what do people do when they win a championship? They smoke cigars. Like,
No doubt.
It's kind of you have the victory celebration, and certainly the Ed Reed and other guests that you've had on. It's a culmination, a celebration of success in their particular field, and a lot of people have gravitated towards enjoying cigars as a result of that. There's no better way to celebrate even the small successes, the day in and day out, over a cigar. And it, like, to me, it's the great equalizer. You have people from all different walks of life. Go to a lounge, construction workers, doctors, lawyers, pizza delivery folks, lobbyists, you name it. And I learn something from every single one of those conversations with any of the folks there. Might not always agree, but I think that we are very fortunate, all of us, to have play a small role in the cigar industry at large.
Exactly. Like what you were saying, you may not agree with everything you say, because there's been plenty of times where I'm at an office, or if I'm at a party and there's no cigars going on, right? And I meet new people, networking events or whatever, and I'll start talking to people and they start saying some things. I'm like, okay, I'm not listening to this guy. I don't want to listen to him. I want to get away from him. But when I'm in cigar lounges, if I'm at somewhere where I'm smoking cigars and we're all smoking cigars, and he starts talking something that I don't necessarily agree with or I don't like, I'm more inclined to just like sit back and listen to him and try to maybe strike up a further conversation with him just because of a cigar. If I don't have a cigar in my hand, I don't want to listen to you. Basically, it's what it comes down to.
Well, you take a step back and you say, well, it's not that you have an automatic connection, right? You both enjoy cigars, so you may disagree on this one thing, but you both agree on cigars.
Yeah.
And like your point is you are more inclined in a cigar lounge when you both share the love of cigars. You're more inclined to listen to what they have to say.
Because one, you're also you can't get out because you're there for at least 45 minutes with a cigar, so you got to listen to somebody. But again, it's also that point where maybe it's something where you necessarily don't agree, or you might not agree up front, but it gives you a little more of a chance to listen to them and listen to their ideas and their thoughts, and maybe like, you know what, I have my opinions about him, but after talking to him for a half hour, he's not such a bad guy. So, Josh, you've said that you've had the chance in this position to smoke cigars with so many incredible people. What are some of the top three, like, on your mind that have come that was some of the best conversations, or some of, like, maybe it was a celebrity or somebody you never thought that you were going to sit down and have a cigar with? Then I'll follow up with the top three politicians that you smoked a cigar with.
Oh my gosh, these are tough questions. Well, I think the top moment for me when it was early on, starting at PCA, IPCPR at the time. I got we had a meeting with an ambassador, somebody from a Senate office, a Secret Service agent, and it was myself and Rocky Patel, George Padron, and Alan Rubin from Alec Bradley. And to me, that was kind of a rite of passage. I had, been a cigar enthusiast at the time. 18 was the legal age of purchase. And ever since college, we had the Winston Churchill Society on Fridays. We would smoke cigars, talk politics. So to me, politics and history were synonymous with cigars. And so I had read Cigar Aficionado. I was an enthusiast. And, I had done conference calls and had done, different work, emailing back and forth and phone calls with those folks. But to be there kind of as somebody that was serving a purpose, but at the table with the folks that I really had looked up to. Mm-hmm. It was, in the cigar industry, as a cigar nerd, they were people that I still, look up to. I was starstruck kind of beforehand, but then sitting at that table and just realizing that these folks are just like you and I. They want to sit back and have a rum or a scotch and a cigar. And it was a rite of passage for me where, all right, I'm no longer starstruck. And Alan Rubin, to this day, has been a mentor of mine. I'm close friends with both Alec and Bradley. And, that company in particular, and enjoying a cigar with Alan at any point. We just had our board meeting in February in Naples, Florida at Rocky's office. And, sitting with Nish and Nimish and Alan and some of Greg Zimmerman, our board president, you kind of just let it all sink in. And you're like, you know what? I never would have imagined a decade ago to be lobbying, but to be lobbying for something that I'm extremely passionate about, and then also having the ability to work with and work for such interesting, creative, and innovative people. So that's kind of a roundabout way of answering the question. Politicians, we have there's a cadre of folks that love cigars that will have 3 or 4 a day. Congressman Troy Nels out of Texas, Congressman Rushenthaler out of Pennsylvania, the newly elected Representative Moylan from Guam. It's really cool to have a cigar with any politician, especially doing it at the U.S. Capitol in one of their offices. It's always a special moment. We've also had the ability to really start, and it's been a concerted effort by PCA to look outside of the United States, and having cigars with some of the embassy staff of Honduras and the Dominican Republic, having cigars in country. That's really cool. And then my colleague and I had got a call from another one of our staff that said Carlito Fuente was in town and that he wanted to have a cigar and drop by the office. And there were 2 of us with Carlito for 3 hours, drinking Dominican rum and just having rare cigars. And, Carlito's such a, passionate person, his personality, and it's energizing anytime that you get to spend time with these folks. And whenever you're like, oh man, the government's coming down, it's a tough job. I got weight on my shoulders to make sure that we're able to do this. Whenever you meet with these folks, and anyone from the retail employee to a big personality like a Rocky or a Fuente or a Padron, it's special. I think one of my coolest experience smoking cigars, I went to the Miami Grand Prix last year, and George Padron had a cigar lounge right on the track. And getting to smoke a Padron at the F1 race with George Padron, I'm a huge Padron cigar fan. So that was really cool too.
I mean, you can't beat really that.
Yeah.
Race car driving on the track with George Padron, smoking Padrons. I mean,
don't get much better than that, man.
I'm in all day for that.
Who's somebody that you haven't smoked with yet, but is like, if you could pick anybody, dead or alive, right? Let's do both. If you could pick anybody alive right now, who would it be and why? And then if you could pick anybody in history to smoke with, who would it be and why?
I think nowadays, alive, I think it would be cool to have kind of a mix of some of the politicians or political figures from different sides of the aisle. So like I would put in like an Arnold Schwarzenegger on kind of the Republican, moderate, conservative side, and then like an Al Sharpton, who's on, more on the progressive side. I know both of them, go to the Grand Havana room and enjoy cigars. So kind of just seeing the two sides come together, how that would be. Definitely somebody, and you probably get the answer a lot, but Winston Churchill is obviously everyone's stock answer. A political figure, but I would say George Patton or Ulysses S. Grant.
Wow.
For somebody that has
history
Right.
buff, obviously.
Yeah, so
Grant-
those unique
Yeah.
answers. Yeah.
And I don't even know who George
So
Patton is.
Ulysses
Who's
S.
George
Grant,
Patton?
General during World War II, famous tank commander.
Wow.
There's an incredible movie, Patton. Watch it. It's like 3.5 hours long, but you will thank me if you watch that movie. It's one of my top 10 movies. Those folks in Grant, not to get too history nerd and political nerd on you, but the term lobbying actually originated from the Willard Hotel during Grant's presidency. He would sit in a chair in the lobby of the Willard Hotel, smoke cigars and drink brandy, and meet with people that were asking for things of the government.
Like the Godfather. All right. Like the Godfather.
Yes.
Walking in. Okay.
So, you guys know I do some small batch projects. That's my next small batch project. I'll give you a little teaser. In July, we're going to be releasing an apple brandy paired with a cigar in honor of Ulysses S. Grant and lobbying in general.
Oh, do you know what the cigar is going to be called? Are you going to name it after Ulysses? Call it the Ulysses?
We're not set on it yet. We have like 2 different things. I had a meeting about it yesterday evening, and we're trying to perfect it and see where it goes. So I don't have a set thing, but we're trying to do an event at the Willard Hotel, which is still in existence today, or somewhere nearby. The White House Historical Association has an outdoor area where a lot of people smoke cigars, and their gift shop sells cigars, this White House Historical Association edition, by the same person, Liberty Cigar Company, who's going to produce the Grant cigar. So we're kind of tweaking things. I will certainly extend an invite for that event for you guys.
Oh, that'd be great.
Late
That'd
July.
be great. You could take a page out of Ashton's book and call it the USG instead of the ESG. Ulysses S. Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be honored to come down to that. That'd be incredible.
Now, let me ask you this: going to Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Honduras, kind of like these third world countries, how is it going down there? Because we've been invited a few times to Nicaragua or the Dominican Republic, and we haven't been really able to get an opportunity there. But anytime you tell people, oh yeah, we might be going to Nicaragua, we might be going to Dominican Republic, they're like, oh, don't go there, it's terrible. You'll still got like a sore thumb. What would you say to the people that kind of like negative towards those kind of countries going down there?
I think that it's kind of a misconception. I was hesitant at first. But having gone to Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic were fantastic. They were incredible, life-changing experiences. I felt safe the entire time. It's weird. I've been to Europe, a bunch of times, and sometimes I feel more. And living in Washington D.C. too, and you guys can probably relate. In New York, I felt safer in the DR or Nicaragua than some parts of the U.S. and Europe in general. We take some luxuries for granted. Hot water and drinking water. There's little things here and there.
Absolutely.
But for the most part, people are incredibly friendly. They're incredibly grateful that you're there, that you're taking an interest in their country, what their country has to offer. And you're out there, I tell them what I do, and they view me as somebody that's trying to protect their livelihood. So it really, if you have the opportunity to go to see a factory, you will have a whole new perspective on the cigar industry. And when you go to the humidor and you select your cigar, or you sit down in that lounge chair and you're talking about it, you will have an added depth of knowledge and also understand the totality of what's at stake.
Yeah, I think the first place on our list is Dominican Republic, obviously, because our cigar is made from Dominican Republic, or made in Dominican Republic. Definitely want to go there. But yeah, it's nice to hear that, because obviously we've heard some negative things, more specifically about Nicaragua and not so much Dominican Republic. But it's nice to hear that, from somebody that has been there and has felt safe. And I think it would be a bucket list to go to I would say the 5 different countries, right? There's Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras, Ecuador. Mexico I've been to already, but to go to a tobacco farm in those regions would be, and then obviously Cuba. But
I just want to take a selfie in a tobacco plant. That's all I want to do. I want to take a nice selfie with a cigar in my mouth with a nice tobacco plant field behind me. That's all I want to do. I'm a simple guy.
But in doing that, Pro Cigar, that's the event that I just got back from. That is a great experience of both learning and socializing and partying and all of the above.
I can imagine.
The factories and fields. But here in the United States, the J.C. Newman factory in Tampa, Drew Estate also does their barn smokers.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Connecticut.
Yep.
So if you're looking to see tobacco fields and have that experience, I think the greatest thing is having dinner or a meal over cigars in one of those fields. It's picturesque. And it's just you're like, man, I feel good.
Yeah. The closest I ever got was I was doing like one of those like rugged maniac type of challenges where you're like obstacle course or running through mud, going all that crazy stuff. I think I did it in Massachusetts, and I was driving back from Massachusetts going through Connecticut, and one of my cousins or someone was like, "Hey, look, Eric, there's a barn with like tobacco leaves," and I was like, "We're driving by." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool," and I was like, "Stop right now, turn around." And everyone's like, "You can't go on there." I'm like, "There's no one here, and if someone's going to stop me, so be it." But I walked in, and it was just in Connecticut, and just a giant barn with just leaves just marinating all over the place. And I was like, this is heaven right here, baby. This is fucking awesome. The closest I ever got.
Love it.
So, we want to end on a good note, right? So, a positive note. So, moving forward in the cigar industry and in the tobacco industry, what are some of the positives and the good outcomes that you see, in the next 5 to 10 years for cigars?
I think, demand is one of them. There's a lot of people that are, enjoying cigars on a limited basis. A lot of folks that, they're understanding what we all know, that it's much like a fine bourbon or a fine wine. It's recreational, it's occasional. So I think that is going to continue. 2023 numbers are strong so far. I think that is a positive sign. I think it's a positive sign, the victories that we've had in the courts, that we're pushing back with the Food and Drug Administration, with Congress, with the White House, educating folks. So we're utilizing our townhouse here. Right now, our past few events we've been at over capacity. I have had members of Congress waiting in line trying to come to a PCA event to, experience cigars. So I think that there's an interest level there. There's an interest level in educating and becoming more sophisticated. Mm-hmm. People don't want to just be, most people that are really into cigars are not like, just give me a cigar. They want to know the origins, the leaves, the varietals, the nuts and bolts behind the cigar itself. So having an educated consumer base also means that the consumers are more likely to get involved in advocacy and in fighting for their rights to enjoy not only a hobby but a passion, that they savor cigars, they don't smoke cigars. And so those are some positive indicators. We need to ensure, though, that the United States and our associations and our partner associations recognize our global importance to the cigar industry, that we are stewards of the premium cigar industry for the future, that we can continue this craft and allow the manufacturers that are the true artists to continue to do that. With that comes responsibility as well. I think what you guys did in the box and the packaging and the name, the blueprint, that's what we want to see. Innovation, folks that are, newer. I would say that we're all newer to the cigar industry. We haven't done it for, 20, 30 years, like some of the greats that have been doing it for a while. But we have to recognize the challenging predicament that we're in, that government, anti-tobacco groups are coming at us, and be cognizant that we don't want to create things that could be taken in the wrong context. No one's out there marketing specifically towards kids. That's not something that the cigar industry is about. But some of the controversial things that PCA has done in the past 2 years, involving marketing, our kind of code and letting people know, it's not about stifling creativity. That's the absolute opposite of what we want to do and what we're known for. But we want to make sure that the cigar industry can continue, and that government's not going to come and shut it down. And that with that comes responsibility. But you also have an obligation to be involved and to be active in fighting it. And that's why I appreciate the opportunity to be on shows like this, and you all and the media platform to leverage our voices so that more and more people can understand what's at stake and what we have to do to continue forward.
Josh, spoken like a true gentleman and a scholar. Appreciate that, man. And, sound like a true politician. So you got that politician voice and that explanation most definitely down pat. We appreciate you coming on, brother. Thank you so much for your time and, enlightening us some more. Some positive
hopefully
news.
We'll get to see you guys in Vegas in July at the trade show. You obviously are invited, as well as the special event in July. Once we have details on that. But trade show, July 7th through the 11th, we love having media come, and I'll tell you, it's the family reunion of premium cigars. You get to try some stuff that won't be on the market for 8-9 months. It's a blast.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we appreciate the invite. We appreciate you coming on. The website is cigaraction.org. Is that it?
Yep, cigaraction.org and premiumcigars.org. Those are our two websites. Cigar Action is the advocacy platform. Premium Cigars is the main association website.
And you're Wolf on K Street on Instagram, right?
I guess so.
And we learned what K Street was last time.
I love it. Well, Josh, thank you again for joining us here on the Burn Down. We look forward to continuing our conversation, to meeting you eventually in person, hopefully in July. We wish you all the best. And thank you again for pushing and for lobbying for this beautiful industry and this beautiful community that we are a part of.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Josh.
All right. Here's to you.
Cheers. Chin chin. Salud, brother. Thank you, man.